Hey guys, Justin back with another video. This one's called How and Why Psyops Work and Dissolving Illusions. Let's get right into it. So, with my own ability to dissolve illusions, I've been researching logical fallacies, and it's changed my outlook on life over the last 3 to 5 years. I've really dove into it over the last 3 years, but logical fallacies such as ones like affirming the consequent, appealing to authority, appealing to consensus, and begging the question have to do with really dismantling your own way of thinking. And so it started with the virology and germ theory fraud and things like questioning the shape of the earth and the validity of NASA and things along those lines. With virology itself, affirming the consequent is one of the big ones, where if X, then Y must be true. So like if a virus, or if X would be if I get sick, then virus would be Y, then virus must exist. That's affirming that X has actually been proven to exist. And a similar way of thinking could essentially be if X being, if presents are under the tree at Christmas, then Y, Santa Claus came and gave presents to the kids of the house and essentially across the world. Which we all know, unfortunately, Santa Claus is not real in, like, he might be real in spirit form per se, but he's not a real person traveling the world with reindeer and doing all that. Sorry to burst your bubble if you still believe in Santa, but we all need to stop believing in Santa on a massive worldwide scale. And so appealing to authority just because the government, two wings, same bird, having to do with mind control, just because the government says something is true does not make it true. And this goes to questioning policemen, police officers. Police officer really means policy enforcer. And so police officers, what gives them, men and women, just like you're a man or a woman watching this video that was created by God. They're also men or women created by God. But they themselves are essentially just in a costume, and they're giving themselves a perceived authority by the government, which literally the root of government means mind control. And so we are playing an appeal to authority because we have this complex of appealing to what the government says because it's the right thing to do, because we're all appealing to fear, and that's what brings in masculinity in today's day and age, where there's been a fall of strong men in today's society, where weak men create hard times and hard times create strong men. And it's been this cycle. And right now we are in a time where there are hard times because there are weak men. There used to be strong men back in the 18 and probably early 1900s, before the massive collapse of society with the Federal Reserve and everything else, and getting rid of the gold standard, and our each generation has become weaker and weaker and weaker. And I feel that there is a select few in our generation, as the younger generation call it, the millennials / Gen X, Gen Zs, this upcoming younger men generation. A lot of people are waking up and coming to trust God and living through things like love and increasing consciousness on a world scale. But is it going to be enough? Because of what we're going to get into with this conversation about appealing to authority, government, it means mind control. The government uses the red versus blue, right wing versus left wing, conservatards versus libtards conversation to keep you distracted and not questioning the hidden hand that is really behind the bird, controlling the bird itself. That's a hand. That's a great drawing of my hand over there, So red versus blue is all just one big psychological operation. A lot of my audience is probably aware of this, but a lot of my audience might, have people that are in that conservatard or libtard way of thinking, and each side has possible pros and cons to each side, but when you wake up to the fact that both sides just work together and are part of the same machine, and they use mind control, their agenda comes into using us to walk off a cliff into the pits of hell, and we're all just attached to our phones like this, and recently there's just been an agenda pushing the biodigital convergence of this new system, and this Epstein stuff right here, it's all one big humiliation ritual, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. I mean, this Epstein stuff has been talked about since the 2020s when COVID was happening and everything else, and again, it's a psychological operation. What is a psyop? Psychological operations are mass formation psychosis events used in the media, social media, TV, news, education systems, movies to affirm ideas or illusions, typically surrounding you giving up your freedoms. So, for example, with COVID and Epstein, when COVID happened, Netflix started using Netflix documentaries and movies coming out. Like, they used a movie called Pandemic. I wanted to call it Plandemic right there because that's what I call the scamdemic itself of COVID-19. But COVID, there were right away when we all got locked in our houses, Netflix used their algorithm system, locked everybody in their house and scared the crap out of them, saying, "Oh, you're gonna get sick." And then the media, right? The media, CNN, Fox News, right wing, left wing, red, blue, CNN, blue, Fox News, red. They both have their polarizing sides, but they keep you in a box of a way of thinking that you have to pick one or the other. If you're watching CNN, you're a libtard. Oh, if you're watching Fox News, you're a conservative. It's all the mind control. You have to pick a side. Guess what? You don't have to watch the news at all. You don't have to pick a side. You don't have to do any of that. It's not what God wants. So all of these that I gave examples of, 9/11, Sandy Hook, Epstein, COVID, I say humiliation ritual, there's been no arrests, no accountability. This points towards the fact that no one's coming to save us with this Epstein stuff. It's a humiliation ritual. COVID, psychological operation based off of the certification of vaccine identification. COVID is one of the most successful psychological operations in the history of mankind, it did wake a lot of people up, but a lot of people fell into their agenda of COVID, which literally stands for Certificate of Vaccine Identification. What's the first letter of the alphabet? 1 equals A, 9 equals I. A, I. Oh, wow. What's happened since COVID-19? There were vaccine passports that you had to download onto your phone and travel, and to get into football stadiums and to get on an airplane. Either that, you had to take a hokey pokey, or you had to shove up a test up your nose. And those tests and vaccines are all linked to harm. I'm not going to fully get into that on this talk, but you get what I'm saying if you know where I come from being a Pfizer whistleblower. 9/11, Patriot Act, TSA, air travel. Back in 2001, the Twin Towers came crashing to the ground. What is the reality behind the situation, though? Some people think that it was a controlled demolition. Some people think that there were no planes. Some people think that there was a plane that flew in, but the reality behind the situation is whatever happened with this was the Patriot Act was passed, and then TSA became a thing, and now air travel has been compromised for the rest of history. And we haven't done anything about it other than comply and comply and comply. We as American citizens, and that's another rabbit hole for another conversation. Or, I mean, we'll touch on citizens, but Americans, we travel domestically and we get searched as if we're like drug dealers, basically. But, you know, the other crazy thing is, you know, Joe Biden was allowing in immigrants and allowing for no vaccine passports and allowing for no jobs and just letting anybody in, trafficking kids and, you know, drugs across our border down south, across Mexico lines. So the thing about all of these, and then there's also the education system, but tell, lie, vision, or tell a vision. All of these things, all of these, 9/11, COVID, Epstein, Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook has to do with affirming school shootings and promoting SSRI research and prescriptions based off of mental health issues in young men and young women. The education system, his story, what even is real? I underlined his and then I wrote story, as in we've been lied to about a lot of things, about our history, and we've been programmed through things like critical race theory. We've been all taught to like divide ourselves among races versus loving each other regardless of race by, like, you know, our human experience right now in the present moment versus being taught about slavery and, you know, what happened with the Holocaust, which may or may not be entirely true, or what was going on in World War II, where, from my perspective, Hitler was, you know, just as evil as what was going on with the Jews, and it all comes back to the Roman Empire and the hidden hands that we just don't actually see. So how do we know what is real? We don't. It's all has to do with modern day slavery. And so the education system affirms modern day slavery. It affirms the government. It affirms NASA as a superior government entity because we learn about landing on the moon. We learned about how Richard Nixon called the astronauts when they landed on the moon, even though during that time in I think it was the 1950s, when they landed on the moon, they still had black and white TVs. They still had landline TV. They still had landlines for phones, and they sent up basically guys in like a tinfoil rocket up to space on a pipe dream, and then somehow 3 weeks later they just came back down to Earth. Yeah, if you think that we went to the moon, newsflash, you really are a lost cause at this point. But they still have hope for you. It's just the heliocentric model. I mean, it's all based on CGI pictures, and if you look up pictures of the Earth, even just go on Google and type in picture of the Earth, and then it's gonna show you all different ones, but they never actually look the same, and it's all just fraud. They lie about what makes us sick. They lie to us about virology. They make us afraid of viruses, which have never been proven to exist based off the evidence that's been presented. They lie to us about bacteria. They lie to us about even DNA and what makes hereditary forms of, you know, what genetics actually are and why we like look like our parents. They explain it to be some double helix that they've supposedly isolated, but when you look at the actual experiments that have been done regarding things like DNA, as well as things like just vitamins, like I said, like these are experiments that are done outside the human body and don't actually have any scientific backing based off of laboratory tests that have been done, as we're not omniscient beings, and then what these tests are making omniscient claims like, oh, vitamin B2 is, you know, good to be taking in pill form, and, you know, we all need vitamin A for healing, and whatever that is. Vitamins are a construct and a communication form, but they're they're treated like it's basically big pharma, just one step down, where there's people who take like 50 vitamins a day, and it's like, dang, bro, did God really make you vitamin deficient? I think what really is going on is we as a society are deficient in nature. We are so detached from nature, and our terrain is dying to get back to nature. And so the farther we get from nature, the more sick we get. And so we weren't meant to take vitamins our whole life. Can they be used to facilitate some forms of healing? Maybe, maybe not, but that's a story for another day as well. All of these have to do with dogma. Accepting what you're told as truth is so-called learning. We're told all of these things are true. NASA, heliocentric model, spinning ball Earth. We're told viruses make us sick. We're told DNA and RNA exist, and DNA transcription happens, and translation, and RNA replication, DNA replication, all these things. It creates the biopharmaceutical model itself through receptors, and the way receptors have binding spots for proteins, and so-called proteins are also a farce, and vitamins are also receptor models for our body, whereas it could be much simpler, simply explained with a cause and effect type model, where vitamins might actually help you, but the reality is we're not omniscient, and we don't actually know what's going on inside the human body. It's not like we have a microscope or a little stethoscope to go on inside of our body and actually look at what's going on. So there's all of these illusions that, like, positive claims that are made in the science world, especially about what makes you sick, are real. So-called learning, yeah. So accepting what you're told as truth is so-called learning. So you're presented slides on a screen, and then you just read them and memorize them and make Quizlets, and then you go take an exam on that material. And, like, does that actually mean you learned anything? No, not necessarily. To me, learning has to do with the ability to critically think and question reality and authority, and question each claim that is made. And so modern day learning is the ability to regurgitate information on exams in a short period of time. That to me is what, people think other people are smart just because they're able to regurgitate information in a short period of time, which is pretty blasphemous to me. And so another logical fallacy, appeal to fear. We need masculine men, and we're in this cycle of where there's weak men, and we have created hard times, and now we need hard times to create strong men. And we're on that precipice where there's going to be a lot of men who need to stick up to this government and mind control system, which is trying to shove us off this cliff. And so we as men are attacked through things like porn, social media, dating apps, wearing the pants even in relationships. They give over the pants in the relationship. They give authority to the women to make decisions in relationships because they have been demasculinized. They've been feminized as men to want to basically have premarital sex because that's the common thing to do, and give away the pants in the relationships. And so this all has to do with demasculinizing the world so that no one will fight against this new system and this current economic collapse that we're about to see. And who's fighting against it? We're all pro Second Amendment, right? If you're a freedom fighter, you're pro Second Amendment. But recently this Epstein stuff is coming out. It's a humiliation ritual. Kids are being harmed. There's trafficking that's going on in the world. They admitted that COVID was a huge scam that was planned in like 2015, and no arrests, no accountability. But you're going to get pulled over for a speeding ticket in a few weeks, and then you're going to have to pay a $200 fine. For what? Who'd you harm? Nobody. Make it make sense, my friends. And so I wrote Harry Potter the muggles equals normies. Right now, we are in a time period where there are lots of muggles, and the way that people react to things like the Epstein files being released and thinking that they are honestly real / important information, where there's more important stuff going on, like with the economic collapse and this current bio-digital convergence, which is being shoved down our throats behind closed doors. And at one point, probably by 2030, this bio-digital convergence is going to be on our doorsteps and presented to us. I mean, and if you think about it, it's essentially already here. It's just, it's not in full force in front of our faces yet. We all use a digital currency. It's the digital dollar that's on our screens. How many people use cash nowadays? Not a lot of people. So if they're gonna flip it to crypto and just make it money through the air, then they could do that relatively quickly and just flip the whole system very quickly. And so, Harry Potter, we have muggles. Those are the normies. Those are your friends who still watch CNN, still watch Fox News. Those are people who even will watch the alternative media talking heads and believe what they say and think that they are fighting for freedom. You are collateral for labor, which is debt. This has to do with this economic collapse. We as men and women on this earth were not created by God to just work for our whole lives. Work 9 to 5 until you're 60, 70 something years old. I mean, with the way inflation's going nowadays, we're going to be working until we're 90 to 100 and get no time to retire or anything. So you better find something that you like to do. And with the way that AI is going, I mean, at this point, there's some statistics going around that like 90% of jobs are gonna be replaced by like 2027 and 2028. So if you have a desk job, you better start planning ahead for the future, because you're gonna get outsourced by AI. AI can probably do your job better than you do it right now. It's just there's a liability behind AI itself, in the sense of using it, because it becomes a slippery slope at that point. But if you think about what our money is, where we were taken off the gold standard, I believe in the 1940s or 1950s, around Nixon's time, where they took us off the gold standard, and we have become the collateral for our debt, and where we put our energy into this currency. If we all stopped, then the currency itself would collapse. And so we need to wake up to what they call this all cap. Because the all cap is what they call you on your bills, and your driver's license is even an all cap. And so that's not your actual name. You write your name with just one capital letter at the beginning, and then the rest is lowercase. That is you in the legal form. Where this is what they want, is the birth certificate that you didn't even consent to, that was not created by God, and was created by this system. This system runs all the way back to the birth certificate. So I have some Bible verses written on here in John 8:44. When he lies, he speaks his natural language. And so all of these have to do with lies, appealing to consensus, appealing to what everyone else thinks. Begging the question has to do with, more logical fallacies. So speaking your native language is a lie. It shows that the enemy is just always going to be lying. And so if you've woken up recently over the last 4 or 5 years, you realize that there are lies literally everywhere. Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful above all things. And that goes to heart because even myself, like my heart has been deceived by people in the alternative media, like with James O'Keefe going to Bohemian Grove, thinking that he was a trustworthy person to go to when I was a whistleblower at Pfizer. And it all blew up in my face, but God definitely had trust God through prayer and fasting and through love. Be love. That's what God is. Be love. God showed me the truth, and here I am to be able to give it to you in a true testimonial. Ephesians 5:11 through 13 have nothing to do with the deeds of darkness. Expose it. And so that's another reason why I actually went in to go be an investigative journalist, is to go expose the darkness that was Project Veritas, because they themselves were darkness. There were people connected to Project Veritas. Represents like counterintelligence and dark magic, casting spells of this red versus blue government mind control system on you and keeping the critical thinkers out there that consume media, the ones that question everything, keeping them in the red versus blue paradigm still, thinking that Trump is going to come save us, thinking that the immigration that was happening because of Biden wasn't anything to do with some bigger two-party system that was over like an 8-year time frame where Trump built the wall but left holes in it, and then Biden's in office now, the election was stolen, look, all these immigrants are going to come into this country now, all of it got flooded, has to do with the United Nations agenda, and then boom, now Trump's coming in, and then hey, look, now we have this biodigital convergence AI surveillance system. It's all one big agenda that started around COVID time but was planned years in advance. A lot of this also has to do with MK Ultra and mind control programs. MK Ultra was researched back in like the 70s, and the government claims that these don't exist anymore, but they exist in your movies, in your education system. It's used in your news, TV, and social media. Daniel 12:4. Many shall run and fro, and knowledge shall increase. The only way we win is by spreading this knowledge. And so, as hard as it is to hear sometimes, I'm going to give you my brutally honest human experience perspective. And you might not like it at first, me telling you that everything is essentially fake. And that's not to be a like conspirator to you that, everything is fake. It's just, guys, wake up to what is making you sick. Wake up to the fact that vitamins aren't exactly what you're being told, and that you don't have to be taking them every single day unless it, makes sense. Find a natural practitioner who is awake to these things. DNA, it's all fake. Heliocentric spinning ball, NASA, literally means to deceive in Hebrew. Affirming government and dogma, accepting what you're told is truth. It's all crazy, and they're walking us off to the pits of hell. And so, if and when this biodigital convergence is presented to us, whether it's through Neuralink, which is most likely some sort of Psyop, where I don't think they're going to necessarily put a chip in our heads, but like the microchip itself is already in our hands. It's in our phones. We're using it every day. That is the beast system. It's already here, guys. The digital system is here. It's just a matter of flipping the switch, and no real roads return to the yellow brick road of the Wizard of Oz. The fact that we should be using gold and silver as currency, but even then, we should be using trust as currency. Like, are you a good person or not as currency? The reality is there's enough resources in this realm created by God to help humanity and make it so that everyone has shelter and food and family and friends and community. I'm not saying I have all the answers either. It's just, these are all my ideas. And so, thanks for watching, guys. Keep dissolving the illusions. And if you liked how and why Psyops work by me, leave a like. Drop a thumbs up in the comments if you made it all the way to the end of the video, and send this to one of your friends or family members if you think that this can help shine a light on my perspective for them and help wake them up. Because, I mean, we're not necessarily here to keep waking people up anymore, but at this point in time, sharing truth is love, and love is truth. And so if it ain't love, then it ain't truth. And if it ain't truth, then it ain't love. So dissolve the illusions, break through the mind control, stop with the red versus blue paradigm, leave a like, subscribe, share this, and I'll see you in the next one.